Hello, I'm Professor Dr. Sanjay Doshi. Today I'm going to talk about jaundice in newborn children. Jaundice is a very important problem, especially in the first week of life, and it causes concern both in parents as well as in pediatricians because high level of bilirubin can cause bilirubin toxicity and can cause damage to the brain. Jaundice is visible yellowish discoloration of the skin and sclera due to elevated serum bilirubin, which can be more than 2 milligram percent in adult and more than 5 milligram percent in newborn children. Chemical hyperbilirubinemia, that is bilirubin more than 2 milligram percent, is universal in newborn during first week. Some degree of jaundice, approximately 60 to 70% of the full-term newborn and 80% of the preterm newborn is observed. In most of the cases, it is benign and no intervention is required. Only 5 to 10% cases have clinically significant jaundice which may require treatment. Just to brush up our knowledge of bilirubin metabolism, we all know that RBCs after destruction liberate hemoglobin, which is then divided into two molecules, heme and globin. Heme is acted upon by heme oxygenase and converted into biliverdin, and then biliverdin is acted upon by biliverdin reductase to form bilirubin. This is unconjugated bilirubin, which is water insoluble. It gets attached to albumin and then it goes to the liver, while the unbound portion of unconjugated bilirubin, which is lipid soluble, can go into brain and can cause damage there. The bilirubin which has gone into the liver combines with 2-UDP glucuronic acid to form what is called as bilirubin diglucuronide, which is then excreted in the intestine and acted upon by bacteria to get converted into urobilinogen, which is excreted in the kidney by kidney in the urine, and then the remaining is excreted in the feces as stercobilin. Jaundice in newborn can be of four types: physiological jaundice, pathological jaundice, breastfeeding and jaundice, and breast milk jaundice. Physiological jaundice is the one which appears between 24 to 72 hours of life. The peak serum total bilirubin are seen between 3 to 5 days and in full term and 3 to 7 days in preterm children. Usually does not exceed 15 milligram percent. It does not persist for more than 2 weeks in full-term infants and no treatment is required. There are a few postulates about the mechanism of physiological jaundice. One is the increased bilirubin synthesis because the neonates have high levels of hemoglobin. Then second is less efficient binding and transport of bilirubin, as well as less efficient hepatic conjugation and excretion due to immaturity of the liver. And last is enhanced absorption of the bilirubin via enterohepatic circulation. There is a close relation between breastfeeding and physiological jaundice. In exclusively breastfed babies, physiological jaundice appear in 24 to 72 hours and peaks by around 5 to 15 days and disappears by 3 weeks. It is attributed to inadequate milk flow. For clinical assessment of jaundice, we use a Kramer's rule, which says that if the yellow discoloration on the face is there, then approximately serum bilirubin levels are between 4 to 6%. If the chest and upper abdomen are yellowish, then the serum bilirubin levels are between 8 to 10. If there is yellow discoloration is on lower abdomen and thighs, then the bilirubin is approximately 12 to 14 milligram percent. If the discoloration is on arms and lower legs, then it is approximately 15 to 18. And if the palms and soles are involved, then the bilirubin level can be as high as 18 to 20 milligram percent. So the point to be remembered here is that if palms and soles are yellow, it indicates severe jaundice. Breast milk jaundice may persist as a prolonged physiological jaundice or appear de novo after first week. It is very commonly seen in exclusively breastfed babies. The incidence is 2 to 4%. Maximum intensity is between 10 to 14 days and may last more than up to 3 weeks. The serum total bilirubin may go more than 10 milligram percent, but remember it is always indirect bilirubinemia. Occasionally, high levels may require phototherapy. Now, at the same time, we must exclude hemolysis, extravasated blood, G6PD or hypothyroidism. But again, point to be remembered here is breastfeeding should never be stopped either for diagnosis or for treatment of breast milk jaundice. Now we come to pathological jaundice, and there are certain criteria to diagnose pathological jaundice, and these criteria are that if the jaundice appear in the first 24 hours of life, that is bilirubin more than 5 milligram percent, or on day 2 if the bilirubin is more than 10 milligram percent, or serum total bilirubin more than 17 milligram percent, rate of rise of bilirubin is more than 0.2 milligram per hour or 5 milligram per day, or the onset within 24 hours and associated signs of hemolysis, or any time bilirubin induced neurological dysfunction is seen, or direct serum bilirubin more than 2 milligram percent, or clinical jaundice persisting for more than 3 weeks, or risk factors like preterm, sepsis, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, or metabolic acidosis. If these are there, then this jaundice is considered as pathological jaundice. The causes of jaundice can be classified depending upon the age in hours of the child. So if the jaundice appear within 24 hours of birth, then commonest causes are RH and ABO incompatibility, or G6PD or pyruvate kinase deficiency, or congenital spherocytosis or elliptosphytosis. If the jaundice appear after 24 hours and within 72 hours, then the causes are physiological jaundice, neonatal infections, polycythemia, extravascular blood like cephalohematoma, subgaleal hematoma, intraventricular bleed, subarachnoid bleed, or increased enterohepatic circulation due to intestinal obstruction. And if the jaundice appear after 72 hours, then the causes are neonatal sepsis, then cephalohematoma, neonatal hepatitis, extrahepatic biliary atresia, breast milk jaundice, and then metabolic causes like hypothyroidism, hypopituitarism, Crigler-Najjar syndrome, like that. So this is just a diagrammatic representation of all the causes of neonatal jaundice. Now, how do we approach to a child with newborn with jaundice? So first we take a detailed history, assess clinically, decide whether this jaundice is physiological or pathological, and at the same time we keep at the back of the mind any signs of kernicterus. Then we take a detailed history of labor, whether there was birth asphyxia or birth trauma, or was oxytocin used during delivery, or was there a delayed clamping of cord. We also ask regarding maternal drugs, and then history of liver diseases in family, especially galactosemia or prolonged parenteral nutrition. After history, we go to a clinical examination. If there was the child small for gestational age, which tells us regarding history of whether the child was suffering from polycythemia, is there microcephaly or is there pallor, bruises, cephalohematoma, hepatosplenomegaly, chorioretinitis, which suggests us whether there was intrauterine infection, or urine staining diapers and clay color stools, which suggest cholestatic jaundice. And this is just a small etiological algorithm which gives us some idea regarding pinpointing the diagnosis. For example, there is a child with indirect hyperbilirubinemia. We do one test called as direct Coombs test. So after, if the direct Coombs test is negative, then we do go for hematocrit. If the hematocrit is high, then this is mostly polycythemia, and if the hematocrit is normal or low, we see the red cell morphology or reticulocyte count. If the red cell morphology and reticulocyte count is normal, then this could be enclosed hemorrhage, breast milk jaundice, then hypothyroidism, Crigler-Najjar syndrome, or Gilbert syndrome, or galactosemia. And if the red blood cell morphology or reticulocyte is abnormal, that means if reticulocyte is high, then this could be spherocytosis, elliptocytosis, stomatocytosis, or avian incompatibility. And if the DCT is positive, then mostly this is either RH isoimmunization or ABO incompatibility. After doing a detailed clinical history and physical examination, we investigate the child. We do his total direct and indirect serum bilirubin, then blood grouping, RH typing, hematocrit, a careful peripheral blood smear, then reticulocyte count, G6PD, direct Coombs test on the baby, sepsis screen, liver function and thyroid test, and torch assay to rule out congenital infections. BERA and MRI is usually not done at this stage. If only the child comes for follow-up and if there is need, then only we go for these investigations. Can we prevent hyperbilirubinemia? If we do early and frequent feeding and maintain adequate hydration, we may be able to reduce the bilirubin level. Administration of anti-D injection to Rh negative mother by doing antenatal diagnosis can to some extent reduce the hyperbilirubinemia. There are four aims in management of neonatal jaundice. The first is to prevent serum total bilirubin from rising. Second, to reduce the serum total bilirubin to below the toxic levels. Third, to prevent neurotoxicity. And fourth, to evaluate if direct hyperbilirubinemia is there. And before going to actual management, we record 5 things. So these 5 things are: we record the age of the child in hours. Second, we see the gestation age. Third, the total and direct serum bilirubin. Fourth is blood group, and fifth is assessment of the risk factor. And after that, we divide the neonatal jaundice into 4 groups. These groups are: 1, prolonged jaundice, where the jaundice has lasted for more than 2 weeks in full term and 3 weeks in preterm children. Or second group is conjugated jaundice, whether the direct bilirubin is more than 2 mg/cent and the child is passing high colored urine and pale colored stools. Third, which is a very important group, is called as rising bilirubin, where these children are high risk children, they are sick, they are drowsy, their palms and soles are yellowish, that indicating high levels of bilirubin. There is hepatosplenomegaly, or there are some neurological dysfunctions. And lastly, fourth group is the well baby who is discharged from the postnatal ward, clinically doing well, accepting breastfeeding. So in such situation, we just ask the mother to keep a close follow-up and watch for risk factors. The reduction of serum total bilirubin and prevention of neurotoxicity is the main aim in management of neonatal jaundice. There are 2 main modalities: phototherapy and exchange transfusion. Phototherapy is the modality where blue lights in a spectrum of 450 to 460 nanomicron wavelength and irradiance of 15 to 30 microwave per centimeter per nanometer are used, wherein the child is kept in under this light, and it results in production of photoproducts which are water soluble, and these are excreted in the bile and subsequently in the stools. So that reduces the serum bilirubin. You can use multiple phototherapy if depending upon the severity of the disease. And this is the phototherapy unit where the child is kept under the light. But the crucial point is when to keep this child under phototherapy and which children to be kept for given phototherapy. And for this purpose, American Association of Pediatricians have given guidelines for the phototherapy, and they have classified these neonates into 3 groups. 1, infants at higher risk, that is between the who are premature less than 35 to 36 weeks with risk factors. Then second group is infants with medium risk, and third group is infant with low risk. And according to the risk, according to this, now the age, as per the age of the child in hours and the bilirubin, they are plotted on this graph, and accordingly the child has given the phototherapy. The baby is turned every 2 hours after each feed. The temperature is monitored every 2 to 4 hourly. The weight is taken daily. More frequent breastfeeding or extra 10 to 20% of fluids are given. Serum total bilirubin is measured every 12 hours. The maximum surface area of the naked body is exposed to this light at a distance as close as possible. Eyes and genitalia of the baby must be covered, and feeding every 2 hourly and more frequent changing of posture as necessary. Phototherapy can be discontinued if 2 serum total bilirubin values are less than 10 mg/cent. There are 3 mechanisms by which it is said that phototherapy reduces the bilirubin. One is called as configurational isomerization, where native bilirubin, which is 4Z15Z, is changed to 4Z15E. This 4Z15E is a more polar and more water soluble element and can be excreted through bile. However, this reaction is potentially reversible because this photoisomer 4Z15E can be reabsorbed by enterohepatic circulation, and therefore the clearance of bilirubin by this way is little slow. The second method is structural isomerization, where the bilirubin is converted into lumirubin, which is an irreversible reaction and hence cannot be reconverted into native bilirubin again, and hence the formation of this isomer produces a rapid and efficient decline of the serum total bilirubin. However, formation of lumirubin efficiently requires high intensity phototherapy and a distance as close as possible. And third method is photooxidation. This is the minor reaction where the photoproducts are excreted in the urine. Now there are different types of phototherapy where the fluorescent lamp can be white, can be blue, can be green. It can be tube lights, CFL, LED, fiber optic. So different types are available. Now when to stop phototherapy? If two consecutive readings fall below the current age specific cutoff. So that is the point we stop the phototherapy. But even after stopping the phototherapy, we continue monitoring the baby because of the possibility of rebound bilirubin rise. There are certain side effects of phototherapy like increased insensible water loss, loose green stools, hyperthermia, hypothermia, or rashes or oxidative injury, then UV light irradiation, bronze baby syndrome. If the child has got conjugated hyperbilirubinemia and the child is kept under phototherapy, then the child gets bronze color tinge of the skin, which is called as bronze baby syndrome, or sometimes one can get eye toxicity if they are not covered. The second modality of management of neonatal jaundice is exchange transfusion. And there are certain indications for exchange transfusion. So the indications are if the child is hydrophilialis, or if the cord bilirubin is more than 5 mg%, if the rate of rise of bilirubin is more than 5 mg% per hour, or there are signs of bilirubin induced neuro dysfunction anytime within 7 days, or the cord hemoglobin less than 10 gram%, or indication based on AAP charts and risk factors. So similar to those previous charts for phototherapy, there are charts from AAP guidelines regarding exchange transfusion, and similarly the infants are divided into three groups: a high risk, medium risk and low risk, and as per their age in hours and their bilirubin levels, they are plotted on this graph, and then accordingly the decision of doing an exchange transfusion is done. The exchange transfusion is the most effective and reliable method. It reduces the risk of bilirubin encephalopathy by 3-4 ways. One is it reduces the total serum bilirubin load. Second, it increases the binding site of plasma albumin. Third, shifting of bilirubin out of plasma. Fourth, providing the erythrocytes which are less apt to hemolysis, because we are giving adult blood which is less likely to get hemolyzed, and then the removal of the sensitized RBCs. So the ways by which the exchange transfusion reduces the bilirubin and reduces the chances of bilirubin encephalopathy. The blood exchange transfusion is done by a single catheter pull push method, in which umbilical venous catheterization is done. Small aliquots of 5 to 10 ml are removed and replaced subsequently until about twice the blood volume of neonate has been replaced. For ABO incompatibility, the common blood use is O positive, and for RH immunization, it is usually O negative. This is the diagrammatic representation of how exchange transfusion is done. There are other modalities of treatment available, like intravenous immunoglobulin. It is used in RH or ABO incompatibility. It may prevent the need of exchange transfusion, especially in early phase of jaundice. The dose is 1 gram per kilogram once a day. No role of phenobarbital. IV fluids to be given only if the child is dehydrated, and there is no role of steroids also. Unfortunately, if the child gets high bilirubin and unconjugated bilirubin and is untreated, then that bilirubin gets deposited into the basal ganglion, hippocampus and auditory nucleus, and can lead to what is called as bilirubin encephalopathy or kernicterus. It may manifest initially as lethargy, poor sucking or hypotonia in first few days. In the second stage, the child may develop rigid extension of the extremities, seizures, high-pitched cry, opisthotonus or retrocolis. And in stage 3, the child may become stupor, comatose or marked opisthotonus. The children later in the life may present with movement disorders, gaze abnormalities, choreoarthritis CP and auditory abnormalities. Conjugated hyperbilirubinemia is defined as when the direct bilirubin is more than 2 mg%, and the clues to suspect conjugated hyperbilirubinemia are is the high colored urine or white or clay color stools, persistence of jaundice beyond 2 weeks, and hepatosplenomegaly. There are various causes of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia like idiopathic neonatal hepatitis, insufficient bile syndrome, infections like torch infection, then biliary tract anomalies like extrahepatic biliary atresia or choledochosis, or metabolic disorders like galactosemia, hereditary fructose intolerance, or total parental nutrition, or a child suffering from Down syndrome, like that. So there are the various things which may cause the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So the take-home message is neonatal jaundice is one of the commonest problem observed in newborn. Timely intervention is very essential and can prevent long-term sequelae. Physiological jaundice is observed in 60% of the full-term and 80% of the preterm babies. Never stop breastfeeding in breast milk jaundice. High colored urine, pale color stools and direct bilirubin more than 2 milligram percent indicate conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Indirect bilirubin is toxic and in high level can get deposited in basal ganglion leading to kernicterus. Phototherapy and external transfusion are extant modalities of treatment. Thank you.